Yes guys, how's it going? I'm Brother, welcome back to the channel. Unfortunately, Sheffield United are playing again tomorrow, so I've got to do a match preview. And I've got to say, these last few games, it's been quite fun, hasn't it? I just want to start this video by saying apologies for no long form Swansea preview, of course I just didn't have the time for it. But you might have noticed that I did a short form preview for the game. But you might have noticed I did a short form preview for the match. If I ever don't do a long form preview, it's definitely a short one. Of course, we'll get onto that match against Swansea in a minute, but I just want to say a massive thank you for the support so far on this channel. I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. If someone comments something nice, then that's good enough for me. Even one nice comment per video is so appreciated, thank you very much. The content has been a little bit slow towards the end of the season, of course Sheffield United are in dead rubbers, but once the season's officially finished for the Championship and the Premier League, there'll be reviews and team of seasons. And then I'm ready to get going with the World Cup content, gonna be full steam ahead, because I'm really looking forward to try and make as much content as possible, short form and long form. So if you want to see them short form videos, head over to my TikTok or my Instagram. I'll leave my link to those as well as my X in the caption, so go check them out and give them a follow if you haven't already. I've been trying to put it up, but should we talk about that 3-3 draw against Swansea then? Because my god, that was a disappointing collapse, wasn't it lads? I'd say for large parts of the game we were definitely the better team, having more chances, creating more. We went 1-0 up through a lovely Harmer goal before Davies decided to take out that Swansea player. Zamvi Potnik isn't going to miss a penalty, is he really? Let's be honest. So that takes it to 1-1 at half time. It wasn't bad, just a bit frustrating. Then start of the second half, they have a chance, cleared off the line, Tyler Binnen did brilliantly for it. And of course all the Swansea fans celebrated thinking it had gone in, it hadn't. And then about 30 seconds later we go up the other end, Gustavo Armour with a lovely counter attack, plays it to Burrows and he scores. So of course that puts us 2-1 up, we're thinking we can go and get another. And then the 59th minute he decides to bring off Jairo Riedewald for Joe Rothwell. And I think it's that singular substitution that definitely cost us a game. Riedewald is one of them sort of players where you don't really notice him too much when he's on the pitch, and when he isn't, you definitely notice him missing. To be fair, he also brought Tom Cannon on in the 59th minute, by the 64th minute, he scored a decent goal. So we went 3-1 up, we was quite happy, but after that we lost control of the game. And then in the 75th and 82nd minute, they grabbed the second and the third goal of the game, and it finishes 3-3, another chance blown. And even though, yes, it's a dead rubber and it doesn't mean much, questions still need to be asked. I believe that's now around the 30-point mark that we've lost in winning positions, and I've got to say, quite frankly, that is pathetic. I've seen bad players for United, I've seen bad squads, but I haven't seen anyone this weak. As soon as a player's head goes down, there's no one to get them back up. And it just feels like there's no fight, no resilience, no leaders in the camp. I mean, Tanganga, he's been poor the last few weeks. He's not a captain at all. I just don't think he's that leading presence on the pitch that you want as a captain. And I think in general, we don't really have any leaders in our squad, and that's what we need to focus on in the summer. Because of course, we're not going to be able to spend millions and millions. So we need to be very picky in terms of who we sign and build a squad properly. It's all well and good signing players, signing the best 11 in the Championship, for example. But without them characters and personality, the leaders in the group, you don't achieve nothing. And I think that definitely needs to be focused on in the summer in terms of recruitment. It's a massive decision regarding Wilder in the summer, in my opinion. I think I'm just about still Wilder in, but there definitely needs to be questions asked about these recent weeks. And he's got a massive job ahead of him in the summer. Right, I think that's enough ranting for today. Shall we look at both teams' form? Start with Bristol City. Bristol City on Friday picked up their first win since mid-February under new boss Roy Hodgson. Of course, they made the change over the international break. Roy Hodgson back out of retirement for these last few games. And from what I've heard, it was a much better performance in the last few games under Struber. Form is a hard one to judge, especially for teams when they've got dead rubbers, nothing to play for. And the fact they've got a new manager as well renders them last 4 games null and void. Because you can't really judge how a team played under an old manager when they're not going to play like that anymore against you. Some disappointing results, such as the 2-0 loss to Leicester and a 1-0 loss to West Brom, cost Struber his job. But from the sounds of it, Roy Hodgson's brought a feel-good factor back to Bristol City for now. And in terms of atmosphere, of course it's going to be a good one on Monday because of his first game at home. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into the game. I mean, do we really have to look at our form? Of course, in the last 5, we've drawn 3 and lost 2. And the pattern seems to be draw, lose, draw, lose. And if that pattern carries on, we're bound to lose at Bristol City, which will probably happen anyway. It's a real mix of performances because, of course, against Wrexham and Swansea, we didn't play awful, just didn't get the points. Whereas the games against Norwich, West Brom and Birmingham, we weren't at our best at all. Of course, we've not won in 5. We seem to be in a bit of a rut at the moment. And it's hard to know what to feel because we haven't got anything to play for, so it doesn't mean too much. But there is that thing in the back of your mind, is this going to carry on to next season as well? I suppose it's one thing we won't find out until the summer and next season. Now that we've looked at the form, let's look at one player to watch out for from each team, starting with Bristol City. The Bristol City player I want to speak about is Scott Twine. I think he's having quite an underrated season. As you can see here, 11 goals, 6 assists, average rating of 7.09. We all know about his qualities at Championship level. It's a brilliant player for this league, especially set pieces. With set pieces, he scores some absolute beauties, including that one against us at Bramall Lane first day of the season. He's a very handy player. Of course, you can see he's very versatile in the attack, and I think that's something that Bristol City have definitely used their advantage this season. If you look at the player traits here, you can see he's a very handy player in the final third. Of course, these player traits are compared to other attacking midfielders and wingers. He's in the 88th percentile for chances created, then the 84th percentile for shot attempts, and of course 11 goals is quite impressive, 74th percentile, and even stuff like touches and defensive contributions, 60th and 59th percentile respectively. And it shows he's one of them players, if he needs to track back for the team, it looks like he will do. If you look at his stats here, he's in the high 90th percentile for a lot of these. For example, 11 goals, which is a 96th percentile. For XG and XG on target, it's 94th and 95th percentile respectively. He's in the 96th percentile for shots and 93rd percentile for shots on target. And I've got to say, 11 goals from 26 shots on target isn't bad at all, to be fair. As you can see by these passing stats, he's a very creative player on the ball. In the 92nd percentile for successful passes with 675. And even for a stat like accurate long ball balls in the 88th percentile, but it's his chances created that I really want to focus on. As you can see, he's created 63 chances, which is 99th percentile, and there's only 4 players that have created more chances than him and 2 that have equalled him. And if you look at the likes of Josh Tymon and Matt Grimes, he's got more chances created per 90 than them, and it's fair to say he's definitely a standout performer for Bristol City this season. Even 124 duels won, that's the 87th percentile, and he's a player that loves to be on the ball, of course 1,516 passes, and of course that puts him in the 94th percentile. And with attacking midfielders, you want them to be quite nifty. Of course he's won 57 fouls, which is a 96th percentile compared to players in his position. Like I mentioned, in that attacking midfield winger role, you want someone who's a bit nifty who'll win you a foul, and I think that's exactly what Scott Twine brings you. But as well as being a brilliant attacking threat, he also brings some defensive actions to the game. He's made 95 defensive contributions, which is 98th percentile. 47 tackles puts him in the 92nd percentile, and for interceptions in the 100th percentile was 25. And that goes quite well with recoveries, and possession won in the final third was 123 and 19 respectively. For recoveries in the 93rd percentile, then of course a possession won in the final third is in 90th percentile. Overall, he's a fantastic player for this level, and these stats definitely back that up. And for Sheffield United, fresh off his goal on Friday with Gus Harmer, because he was absolutely magnificent against Swansea, one of his better performances in a Blade shirt. Of course, he won Player of the Year in the Championship last year for a very good reason. He was outstanding last year. And although it feels like he's had a poor year this year, because he's got 3 goals, 11 assists still, and an average rating of 7.17, which is quite solid. Of course, we all know about Gustavo Harmer's quality, I don't need to tell you. As you can see by these player traits, he loves to get on the ball and create a chance. Of course, 95% chances created, 92% touches. He's not been scoring as many goals this season, he's in a bit of a different role, but he seems to be doing better with the assists. Of course, he's in the chart for assists with 11, so obviously that stat is in the 100th percentile. And he's in the 96th percentile for successful passes with 716. And it's his range of passing as well, of course, 55 accurate long balls, that's 100th percentile. I mean, he's created 53 chances, which is 93rd percentile as well. But the thing I want to focus on here is the big chances created, of course 15, which is the 97th percentile. So more often than not, if Harmer creates a chance and it's a big one, we should give a mention as well to successful crosses with 37, that's a 95th percentile. He's a player that loves to be on the ball, of course 1,376 touches, which is 91st percentile. And in terms of his defending stats, they're not the best in the league, but they're not awful either. For a winger, 26 tackles and 15 interceptions isn't awful, and he's in the 82nd percentile for recoveries and possession won in the final third. He's made 93 recoveries as well as winning the ball back in the final third 15 times. Overall, he's a fantastic player, sometimes can be hit and miss, but when he's on it, he's really on it. And we saw exactly that against Swansea, of course, a goal and assist, he was fantastic. And although it feels like he's having an average season, the stats certainly say otherwise. Now that we've had a look at one player to watch out for from each team, let's have a look at the team that I put out to face Bristol City. In the net, it's quite a simple one, it's Adam Davies. I think Adam Davies is probably going to carry on for the rest of the season. He's not been awful. He's not been outstanding in these last few games, but he's not been awful either. He's in the middle. I don't know whether towards the end of the season he'll put Luke Faxon in for a few games to get some experience, but I can't see him messing about with that too much in an away game, so it's going to be Adam Davies in the net. I think it'll be Femi Sariki still at right back. Of course, we've got the option of Hoover if we wanted to. He's not been bad, but I think whenever Sariki's fit, you've got to play him. Of course, not a brilliant game against Swansea, but the rest of the season he's been class. And of course, it's his attacking threat down that right hand side that makes him such a good player. I don't think he's awful defensively, but he could do a bit better sometimes. But when he drives forward down that right hand side alongside Andre Brooks, he's always a problem for teams. He's one of my favourite players at the moment. I could wax lyrical about him all day. Like I mentioned, not the best of games against Swansea. He was alright, but nothing more. But I think in an away game where we're going to be under pressure at times, I think he's a perfect attacking outlet. At right centre back, it's going to be Japhet Tanganga, isn't it, really? It's one of them. He's been struggling the last few weeks, but who do we bring in for him? The last few weeks, his performances have been subpar. He's not been brilliant, especially as a captain. I mean, you could make an argument about McGuinness, but I just don't think he's better than Tanganga, sadly. And also, I'm not really sure where Ben Mee's gone to. He appeared in a Sidemen video, but he's not fit for us. So I'll be honest, I don't really know what's gone off there. It's definitely an interesting one with Tanganga because he started the season so well and he's just dropped off a cliff recently. So with next season fastly approaching, it's going to be interesting what we do with him. At left centre back, the better of the two at the moment, Tyler Bindon. Despite the fact we've conceded quite a few goals, he's been quality at the back. Since the start of 2026, really, come on leaps and bounds. You can see the ability to grow and his confidence. And he looks more comfortable at centre back game by game, week by week. I thought he was one of our better players against Swansea. Of course, that goal line clearance that saved up from a certain goal. And obviously that was made even more crucial by the fact that we scored about 30 seconds later. I think it's definitely one to watch out for in the summer if we sign him on a permanent or not. Because I think if Forest stay in the Premier League, then it's a real possibility that we could at least go for him. And to be honest, I wouldn't be against that at all. At left back is Harrison Burrows, who bagged his 4th goal of the season against Swansea. But despite that goal, he wasn't the best against Swansea. He was quite weak defensively. And I think that's a problem with Burrows. As good as he is going forward, he's quite weak at the back. And even last season when he was flying in terms of form, he still struggled defensively. The start of the season he was quite poor, but I think he's been a bit better recently. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens in the summer. Of course, him and McCallum fight for the same place. It's a tough one, but I think McCallum could be that starting left back next year. So it begs the question, do we try and cash in on him in summer to try and gain some funds? Because of course, without parachute payments in the summer, we need to make some funds, so he could be an expendable asset. I think he'll change formation going into this game back to a 4-4-2. So I'll start off with right midfield. I'm going for Ogbene. Of course, Andre Brooks went away with Jamaica for the World Cup qualifiers, and you could tell he wasn't up to fitness after them games because of course he was in Mexico, and it's quite a long flight, so obviously he was quite tired, quite jet lagged, which is understandable, and you could definitely tell that in his performance he was quite poor, not his usual self. And I think Ogbene was decent for Ireland over the international breaks. I think he deserves a start, to be honest. He's been on the fringes for a few weeks now. Of course, he's been on the bench a couple couple of times. I mean, about a month or two ago, he scored against Oxford, then didn't come until about 4 weeks later. So I think we definitely need to give Andre Brooks a rest and bring in Ogbene. I think he should keep the midfield two the same, so I think Peck is the first one. Of course, Peck picked up an assist against Swansea, but it wasn't his best self. I thought some of the passes were a bit sloppy at times, he didn't create as much as he could, but I think he's come on leaps and bounds this season in terms of his confidence and his ability, because of course he started adding more goals and assists to his game, and I think he's definitely grown as a player right now. He'll be in the Premier League in no time. But let's just hope for our sake it isn't this summer that he goes to the Premier League. But like I mentioned, with the parachute payments disappearing, he could be one of them options that could get sold, because I think if we were to sell him, we could get 15-20 million roughly, so maybe he could be seen as one that could be sacrificed. Obviously I hope he doesn't leave, but it is looking likely day by day, but I guess all we can do is just wait until summer and see what happens. The other central midfielder is of course Riedewald. Like I mentioned at the start, I think he's so important to the way we play, so solid in that midfield, and I think he's the one that doesn't get noticed as much in the midfield, of course controls the tempo, but my god can you tell when he's not on that pitch, that midfield is a mess. I saw a stat earlier, 6 of the last 9 goals that we've conceded have been when Riedewald hasn't been on the pitch, and that's despite him starting all of them 5 games, so it shows that when he comes off it all goes to shit. I think he's the glue in that midfield. He's one of them players where you notice him more when he isn't on the pitch. Whether it's a fitness issue, we can't play more than 65 minutes, I'm not sure, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. On the left is of course the aforementioned Gus Harmer. Of course I've just waxed lyrical about him, he's been brilliant this season, and he stands out in games some more than others, of course that Swansea game being a good example, because I feel like when he isn't on it he drifts away out of the game a bit, but my god when he's on it he's really on it, he's a joy to watch. Of course he was pivotal in 2 of them 3 goals against Swansea. Of course the first one, a really nice finish just under the keeper, and then the assist, of course it was a brilliant counter-attack, waiting for Burrows to come up then play the perfect ball, and overall when he's on it he can influence games massively. Like I've mentioned about a few other players, it could be one that's sold in the summer, and it's one that I've come to terms with a bit more than the others because the others are young players, whereas Harmer's 29 in June, of course he's coming to peak of his career, and in terms of market value it's the highest it's ever going to be at this point realistically, so I think he's the most likely to leave in the summer in my opinion. The first striker I've gone for after an impressive cameo off the bench is Tom Cannon. Of course he came on in the 59th minute, he got a goal by the 63rd, and my god it was a peach of a goal as well. A lovely little finesse at the edge of the box right into the bottom corner, and overall I think it was a decent little sub against Swansea to be fair, and it's certainly one of his best performances in a while because some games he'd been out of it, but I'd definitely say alongside Bamford on Friday he was quite solid, but in my opinion I think he's definitely earned a start in that 2-striker formation, and effectively it's Callum Ware that's being dropped because of the formation change, which I think is the right thing to do. He was quite poor against Swansea, he looked a bit knackered, and it's probably best that he gets a rest once in a while. Tom Cannon's a really interesting player because he's never really come to life in a United shirt, and with us not being able to spend too much, we probably won't prioritise a striker as much in the summer, so we'll probably look for Tom Cannon to try and step up and be that 10 million that we spent on him. And then alongside Cannon, of course the aforementioned Bamford. I thought he was alright against Swansea, he wasn't brilliant, nothing more. He wasn't really in the game because we didn't create 2 winner chances for him to finish. He had odd couple of chances, but they're only half chances really, let's be honest. But of course really he's been our saviour this season, because I think without his goals in key moments we'd be in a relegation battle at the moment, but I think his 9 goals in the Championship has definitely saved us from that, because if you look at our top scorers, of course Callum Ware has got 9 as well, but then it dropped down to Andre Brooks with 6, which isn't a lot really, so of course without him Bamford goals god knows where we'd be. And there we go guys, that's my team to face Bristol City. It's a really hard one to call, of course 2 teams with nothing really to play for. I suppose with Bristol City, with Roy Hodgson and that win against Charlton they'll be full of confidence, whereas for us I don't think we will be, to be honest, so that's why I'm going to go for a 2-1 Bristol City victory, and I think it'll be City Pet that gets a consolation but nothing more. As always guys, if you enjoy this sort of content leave this video a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm looking forward to bringing the content out the next few weeks, of course the Championship, the Premier League reviews, team of the season, then the World Cup content, and then after the World Cup of course it's a brand new season for Sheffield United, and honestly god knows what next season will bring, we'll just have to find out won't we. Of course you can go and follow my socials down in the caption, my X, my Instagram and my TikTok. I post a lot more short form content, so if that's for you go check them out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.